rescue. I'm your host, Zack Zander, and of course, we talk football all day, every single day. Today, we're going to venture into the world of Debbie, and I got a really great guest to talk college football today, Kevin Coleman from multiple podcasts. He's on the Debbie Royale, which is amazing. Him and Jeff Bell and Christian, Super Fantasy Bros. He's a Debbie writer at Fantasy Pros. How are we doing today, Kevin?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. It's a nice little Sunday hanging out at home, and you got me away from having to do some daddy duty and some chores. My wife wants to put together something in our house, and so you got me away for an hour, so I appreciate you.
Oh, well, tell her I'm sorry. My wife's
No,
upstairs waiting for
you're
me.
fine.
She's got a chore list for me also, and I probably have to go grill dinner. So, but anyway, let's get into college football. We're about 4 or 5 weeks away from the college football scene starting. And I have to admit, I'm a dynasty addict, but I am now just finding Debbie within the last about 15 months. And it's a whole nother world. And it brings everything I love about dynasty like full circle with the college recruits, with the college tape, with my college analysis of these players. So I love Debbie. Tell me how long you've been playing Debbie and I guess analyzing it.
Oh man, so I believe I started around 2015. Like that was one of my first ever Debbie leagues. I drafted Zeke at Ohio State, and then he became a Cowboy guy just like me. And so I fell in love with kind of the format. And I was just strictly like a Debbie guy. I think one of my first Debbie leagues, we had one round of Debbie, so it wasn't like as crazy as it can be now. And I just started and I got hooked. And so, really, I just played Debbie. I'm a commissioner of 6 Debbie leagues, including a pipeline league where we actually drafted colleges in the startup draft. So that's really where my focus was until last year. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, you know what? I like this stuff. I used to write like reviews for my leagues that I'd run. I did videos for the leagues I run. I was like, I could probably do this on a bigger scale. So I started basically in about June. I probably was my first article I ever released. And then I just kind of grinded, man. And you know how it is, just work and you put in time and you put in effort. And that's kind of how I've gotten to where I've gotten today.
Is it true? You just got Twitter verified, right?
I did, yes.
Holy shit, man. I've seen it was going around this week. Congratulations. I mean, you get that little check mark next to your name. Before like 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know what it meant. Someone said they got verified. I wasn't even sure what it even meant. But supposedly it's you're a knowledgeable person, obviously, in Debbie, and congratulations. It's kind of funny to me. I'm not gonna lie, but it's awesome. Like when I actually dug into it, and when you see they don't just hand it out to anybody, it's people that put out professional type work. Congratulations, and it sounds like you've earned it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I didn't want to do it, but Jeff Bell made me do it. He said, you need to apply. And I said, I'm not doing that. And he's like, yeah, because I always stand on the radar. I don't really care about that crap. But he made me do it. So shout out to him for making me do it. And, I don't think it doesn't change anything to me. I'm still going to put out good content and just do what I do. But it is nice to be recognized sometimes. Like, hey, I've done a lot. I mean, to be honest with you, like everybody out there, I do a couple series where I talk to guys coming out, and they always ask me, or I have people ask me, what do you do? And I said, you know what, I just do things, and I work, and I write really, as much as I can. I'm not a very good writer, I'll admit it, but I just keep practicing, and it just takes reps. You know how it is with podcasts. It's the same thing, and Debbie's the same way. Like, dude, the what I am as a Debbie manager now, when I was 5 years ago, is stupid. Like I'm so much better than I was, just like in dynasty formats and stuff like that. So like it's the same thing with content. It's like, hey, you just got to do reps. It's all about reps.
Do you dabble with campus to Canton setting also?
Yeah, I'm in a couple leagues. I'm in 3, and 3 is way too many, to be honest with you. But I'm in 3. I have a co-owner in 1. I love campus to Canton, but that's a whole different that's a monster. That's a whole different one that we're in. But I do like campus to Canton. But my heart's at Debbie just because sometimes I don't have the time all the time to be able to manage both sides and do all that. So like I'm done with 3. Like I know some guys that are in like 20 campus to Canton leagues, which they're degenerates. That's crazy to me. Like 3 to me sometimes is a too much. And I have a co-owner.
I think 1 is the first one. Yeah. I was used to a Devy league being like 10 rounds, maybe
Yeah.
15. They're like, oh, it's going to be 45 rounds. So I'm like, 45 rounds at 12, times 12. This is crazy. This is going to be 400 or 500 players that I have to look into. And I end up constructing my team. But what I like about it is you can find some darlings in there that
Yeah.
might not be the best NFL prospects, but they can be the stat hounds that are going to just eat up fantasy points, kind of like Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State is like one of my favorite players in Campus of Canton. I don't know if he's going to be in the NFL, even though he's electric from his freshman season. But for the next 3 years at Kansas State in the weak-ass Big 12 defense, he's going to be putting up some major stats. So he's one of the players I was huge on in Campus of Canton, but not so much in the Devy.
Yeah.
But like you said, the Devy is just strictly drafting your players, holding them like almost like a farm team for your dynasty team. And then when they go into the NFL, you can bring them onto your main roster. And you want to get those players, like you said, Ezekiel Elliott. And if you had like Trevor Lawrence a couple of years ago, like that, like you're sitting on a gold mine, you're sitting on money. So where's it going to start? I'm going to unveil some of my rankings today. And it's going to start with the quarterbacks, obviously, because every league that's starting up right now is some sort of super flex league. It's the one quarterback leagues are kind of a thing of the past. I think they're going to go away with like standard scoring. So it starts with the quarterbacks, this 2022 class. And it starts with Spencer Rattler for me and Sam Howell. And I think there is a humongous drop off. I'm going to go ahead and show them up right now. These are the top 7. I'm going to release the 8 through 14 also. These are my top 7, and it starts with Rattler and Howell. And I think there's a huge drop-off to my number 3 quarterback in Slovis. Are you on the same boat with me that it's those two and then everybody else, or do you think there's somebody else in there, or maybe you're not as high on Rattler and Howell as everybody else is?
Yeah. So this class leaves little to be desired, I think, a little bit compared to this last class, like where you saw guys like Lance and all these different, and Wilson and Fields and all those guys. So I do agree with you on the top 2. I do think we're going to disagree a little bit on the rankings a little bit because you're missing my guy Matt Corral. So I do want to know your opinion on him because that's my 3rd-rated quarterback. So for me, it goes Rattler, Howell, and then Corral. And then Carson Strong is right there with those guys, and I have Jaden in there as well. But I don't like Keaton. I think Keaton Slovis is gonna fall apart a little bit this year. I think that his value is a little bit too high for some. I'll be honest. I'm not a big Slovis guy, but the first 2 guys that you have there, Rattler, Howell, I probably have it the same. It's very close to me. I probably would side with Rattler a little bit. I did see someone compare Sam Howell to Baker Mayfield recently. And I thought that was an interesting comparison in terms of who he is as probably a quarterback.
I think it's a perfect comp, and it's been my comp since I seen Howell his freshman season. Same body size, same cocky ass attitude. Also, I think they have the same bravado. They're a little bit cocky, and sometimes it's going to bite you at the end. But he's got mad game. I like him. I don't know if he could ever be a top 5 QB, but I don't know if Baker is either. But I think Sam Howell is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And in these Devy leagues, I mean, Rattler, Howard, I mean, Bryce Young, DJ from Clemson, those are the only guys I really will draft in the top 3-4 rounds. And it really goes those 4 guys. And then I fade off to maybe the 4th round if I'm in a Devy league. So you're not a big fan of Slovis, and I'm not going to defend that ranking too much. I think he is amazingly accurate. He's a gamer. He's had a ton of talent to throw to. I mean, USC has had some ballers, like no question about it. But he is very accurate, and we've seen this story play out before with Joe Burrow, the short arm quarterback that strengthens his arm a little bit and proves himself into the draft. I don't know if he's ever going to be that first overall pick. Obviously, I'm not that so high on him, but he is amazingly accurate. You can't teach that stuff sometimes. So I think Slovis is a guy that can be in the NFL. The next 2 guys have a higher ceiling than Slovis. They really do. JT Daniels, we know the story all the way back to when Slovis kind of took that job when Daniels got hurt. We're talking the major league arm that every NFL team wants, and he looked really good at the end of last season. I can't wait to see this Georgia team. I have them in the Final Four. And then Graham Mertz is a guy I think that can jump out of nowhere and be that Mac Jones type first-round pick that nobody's talking about right now, because I was really impressed with his game last year. This was a highly recruited guy. You don't usually see at Wisconsin. This guy was recruited by Ohio State. He was recruited by everybody in the Big Ten and outside of the Big Ten. Graham Mertz has some juice. Nobody's talking about him, and I really like him, and he's a prototypical NFL passer.
Yeah, I put Mertz in a Fantasy Pros article, one of my first ones for like Debbie Sleepers in the Big Ten, and I agree. I do think that last year people don't realize, like, he's got a good frame, 6'3", 215, but then last year he was doing well, and then the COVID hit the program, and that program got wiped out with COVID, and they were missing guys. He had to get out for 21 days. So I agree. I like it. I think he has good accuracy. Like, when you talk about accuracy, Mertz is the first thing that comes to me. Like, hey, he can hit the guys, in stride. He has pretty good arm strength to the outside numbers. I like that about him. I think the thing with Wisconsin is, are they going to be too conservative? They're going to run the ball more. Will they release and let Mertz kind of grow and throw? I don't know. I can see them maybe doing that. Mertz is a wait and see for me. Now, I did put him on my sleeper list because I said, hey, there is a chance that, like we talk about, like you're mentioning, he could have a great year in Big Ten and kind of explode. And to your credit, after the top two guys, depending on what you think of Corral, who knows who that third guy is going to be. So anybody in here could kind of jump up and get that spot.
I believe he's getting slept on a little bit because he was a redshirt freshman, but he's going to be draft eligible. Yeah, in Wisconsin, with the power run game, but it opens up for some really easy passing game stats, which I don't know if he's ever going to be a 4,000-yard passer in the Big Ten at Wisconsin, but he has the raw ability that I look for in a pro passer in the league. So my sixth guy, Ritter, he's got some upside. He's got a little juice. He moves around. He's tall. He's got a decent arm. It's kind of what I don't like about him, I think he has kind of a herky-jerky slow release. I don't think he gets the ball out quick enough, and I really look at that. It's one of the first things I look at when studying film is how fast you can get the ball out. I'm not saying he can't improve that, and I think Cincinnati's going to be really good this season. I don't know. I think he's going to be a guy, like, after the first two, there could be like 10 more guys drafted, but they're all going to be like in the third and fourth round. I don't think anybody can push that first round grade unless they really bump up their status. Carson Strong, I like him. I'm not in love with him. Where do you have Carson Strong ranked?
Yeah, so Strong right now for me is like 4-ish. So 3A, 4B. I love Carson Strong. I actually did a profile on him last offseason before we're coming out, and I've kind of been high on him. I love his arm strength. I love his pocket presence, his poise. He's got really good improved decision making as the year went. You could see that he reads through his progressions really well. The only thing that I question with him, because we're fantasy, so we're talking about this, he doesn't have mobility. So like when we're looking at that upside from that position, and I know Travis May from Rotoviz talks about it all the time, is like, hey, they need to have that rushing upside to have a high ceiling. He's never going to have that, but he's actually pretty functionally athletic in the pocket. So like, it's not like he doesn't have athleticism there to avoid rush. He's just never going to be that guy that scores touchdowns, that runs for, 50 yards, 60 yards in a game. And then the whole thing about the Mountain West. I go to Mountain West games out here, not very high competition. I love Mountain West games, but we're not talking about there. But hey, Josh Allen came from Mountain West. There's guys, Cars come from Mountain West. So like, there's pedigree there, NFL pedigree. I like Strong, though. I think that Nevada is going to be really good this year. That offense is going to be good. And so, especially with my guy Cole Turner, got to give him a shout out because I do every podcast. I think that they're going to be really good. So if they get into that New Year's Six Bowl and then they do it, then we're going to see his draft stock go up a little bit.
Yeah, Cole Turner is a guy to definitely look at for the tight end position in the 2022 draft. So
yeah,
let's bounce to my 8 through 14. So yeah, these are it says 2021. It's the 2022 QB ranks. My bad. Sorry. Malik Willis at 8. What do you think about my guy right here? Because this is a guy the opposite of Strong who is going to be running the ball. He has that rushing upside, and this is fantasy, but is he an NFL quarterback? So we're talking Debbie, but this means nothing if they don't get drafted and get a job in the NFL. he has all the rushing ability in the world, but is he good enough at playing the quarterback position to make the NFL?
Yeah, this is the question that needed to be answered this year. I will say this: I do make a joke every once in a while. I say, "Hey, he's my running back 4," because he is a solid runner. Like, this kid can do all that. There are times when he makes throws, you're like, "Damn!" Like, he gets on platform and he can sling it, and he has arm strength. You're like, "Hey, this kid makes NFL throws." And there's other times when he does not make throws, and you're just like, "Where did that pass come from?" He kind of can get off kilter. The one thing I worry about with him, he's so athletic. When you watch him play, his first read is run. Like, anytime he drops back, he's looking to run unless his first read is there. And then after that, it breaks down. So I don't see a lot of that progression that I want to see. I will say, we broke down Liberty and we talked about them on the podcast recently. Their schedule is awful. Like, they're not playing anybody. So he's going to put up numbers. So I think that the NFL is going to like that because they're going to see these numbers. I mean, realistically, he could make me win the Heisman. Like, if he puts up the numbers he has, they go undefeated. Then we're talking about, like, well, draft capital is going to increase. To me, he's the ultimate wild card in this. I think I saw a recent mock he went 9 overall to the Eagles or something like that, or 12. I'm hesitant to do that, especially if they don't want Hurts. Why the hell would they draft Willis? But I do think we got to temper our expectations about him a little bit. Some guys in the space have built him up a little bit more, so he's going to get a little more play in this space. I don't necessarily think that's translating yet, but he could have a hell of a year. I just don't see him being a quarterback. I don't see his mechanics and what he does. It scares me a little bit, and he's old.
Yeah. So I think you're exactly right. This is a guy that you would want more in the campus to Canton setting, like as your starting quarterback while you're actually playing a college roster against other people for fantasy stats. Yeah, I think Malik Willis would be one of the top quarterbacks in that format. But in Devy, in just regular Devy, he's not going to. I think it's a prayer. It's a prayer. I know RG3, Lamar Jackson, everybody. I just don't know if he has the arm talent to really make it in the NFL. There's a good chance he might get drafted in the 5th, 6th round, and a team might try him as like a 3rd-string quarterback / wide receiver / just kind of offensive weapon. I could see that very easily. He's my 8th-rated quarterback in a quarterback class I don't really like, so I'm not going to put too much stock in defending that. He's a fun guy. It's going to be some really fun tape. I just don't know if it's ever going to mean anything because he's never going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I just don't see it. What do you think about my number 9 guy, Phil Jurkovec from Boston College, a guy that's the complete opposite, a Notre Dame transfer, big, tall, big arm. Boston College has a little bit of juice. I'm liking what that team going forward is doing. He's got a really nice wide receiver we're going to talk about later on. What do you think about my man right here at 9?
Yeah, he's so funny because, like, Jurkovec is like the guy. He's 6'5", like 225, I think he is. Like, old school quarterback. People, like, 10 years ago, this dude, everybody would have loved him. His size, prototypical QB, everything. I'm not on that train. I think that, he couldn't even beat out Ian Book at Notre Dame. So why couldn't he beat out Ian Book, who, look at what Ian Book's, his draft capital was. He's got a really weird throwing motion. When I watch him, it's a little unorthodox. I get a little worried about that. And he doesn't really attack downfield very much. So when you watch him play, a lot of it's, dump outs, a lot of it's crossing routes. Like, there's not a lot of attacking. I think with Zay there, he does do a little bit more. But I think where his strengths are, he's a prototypical size. He's got a pro-style system. I think he's a backup. He'll get drafted, but I don't see him as being a starter. And for fantasy purposes too, he is not running anywhere. This guy, he runs like me. But I would say strengths-wise, prototypical size. He's in a pro-style offense. I could see him being a very, solid backup in the league. But I don't see. Again, the mocks are all over the place with this class because I saw Jurkovec from a very well-respected source go in the 1st round recently. And I'm just like, I don't see 1st-round potential with him. Maybe, if someone falls in love with him in the 2nd round, but I don't see that. I see him as a backup quarterback.
I mean, Mac Jones was a 1st-round quarterback right now this past season. So I'm not going to say Mac Jones is a very smooth runner. And I know everybody brings up the one Ohio State run he had when the game was almost closed for 1 second. And I'm not going to buy into it too much. Mac Jones could barely move in a pocket. I know what I can see on tape, but I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. 10 years ago, he probably could be a first-round pick. He's not going to be a first-round pick. He could be a guy that you could like a Trask, maybe like a second-round pick. I think that's his upside right there. So your boy Corral is my number 10, and he's a hard guy to judge. It really is, because like, wow, he makes some wild plays, and then he has a 5 interception game, and then I mean, he's hitting Elijah Moore that's wide open because Elijah Moore created like 10 yards of separation. Elijah's gone. You know, I'm interested. Lane Kiffin is a great offensive mind. He had that Ole Miss offense, I mean, playing high notch last year. So I think they're probably going to do it again, but he's a guy that doesn't have great size. He can move around a little bit, but I'm not going to call him like a 4-4 athlete. He's got a nice arm, but is it a great arm? I don't know. I see a lot of question marks, so try to sell him on. Sell him to me right now.
Man, yeah, you hurt my soul with this ranking. You know, I would say this, like, being a second year in Lane Kiffin's offense, I think is going to help him. When you take away his 2 games that he had, you know, 11 interceptions, I believe, which is not great. Like, I'm not going to try to extrapolate stats and be like, well, if you take those 2 games away, like, I understand how bad that sounds. But what I will say is, like, you know, I love his arm. I actually love his arm strength. I love his deep ball accuracy. So when I watch him play, he gets on platform very well. He pushes the ball downfield, which I like to see from my athletes. Now, he does take some chances. So that's where those interceptions come from. So he's got to dial that back. I'm hoping that second year under Kiffin will do that. But again, he's a dual threat guy. He has 7 rushing touchdowns. He has 700 career yards rushing. So he has that too. And the one thing I will say, like, even though he had those picks in those games, he does make the right reads. When you watch him play, when he plays within the offense, he hits his progressions. He does a good job. He knows where the guys are supposed to be. Like, when you watch that, I like it. He's got that little intangible thing. Like, one thing about me that I love is, like, dudes with a little bit of chip on their shoulder, and like they got that. I don't want to say dog because that's stupid, but they got that little oomph, like that little something. As a coach, as a high school coach, and as that, I like that. Like, that is one of those things. You're not going to see it on the spreadsheet. I'm not an analytics guy. Like, he has something in him when he plays. And so I really think that we could be talking about him being as high as the 3rd person in this class. And I know some people that I really respect have him like saying that he could be in the top 2 by the end of the season, like a Zach Wilson type, like he's going to vault. And in that offense, he's going to get the opportunity. Now, he's got to cut down on the interceptions. If he can do that, I still think in this prototypical day of what quarterbacks are supposed to be in the NFL, I think he could be there.
He has some upside, I'm not going to lie, and he can move in the pocket. And you know, the NFL right now is basically college football offense. It really is. It's the spread offense. My buddy Chris McConnell was just on the show, and it was his quarterback 1. Yeah. So, you know, obviously I disagreed, but I'm not going to say he doesn't have the type of talent where he can move up my rankings very easily. Anybody else in my 11 through 14, or anybody I'm completely missing right now?
I see you got Jaden Daniels at 11. The biggest thing about Jaden, Arizona State's program's kind of in a mess right now because Herm was doing some weird things during COVID, and I don't know what they're going to have there, but I like Jaden. He was my number 5 before all this kind of happened. He needs to get his size up. Like, he's a skinny kid, and you'd like to see him at 200 pounds. I think that's the biggest question mark. But he was a high-level recruit. He's one of those guys that's come out of high school, and he played his whole freshman year. Last year, didn't really get a ton of games because of COVID. I like Jaden Daniels. I'd like to see him get his strength up a little bit more. He's an interesting guy because I think he fits what the NFL wants right now, and he has the arm for it. I just think that guys are going to look at his strength and his weight and kind of be off on him. So I like Jaden. I think Jaden, depending on how this year goes, Arizona State was my sneaky pick to win the Pac-12 before all this stuff happened with like sanctions or whatever the hell's going to go on there. But I do like that offense. I do like what he was maybe going to be able to do. So I could see him sneaking in there if he comes back. He might come back and be that senior though next year. So I don't mind it. I understand the concerns with him though being that low.
Yeah, he's so damn skinny, and we need some more tape on him. They played 3 games last year, maybe 4. Like it was sad. Yeah. I love their roster. I love their offensive roster. It'd be a really fun team for me. Hopefully, it doesn't get any more messy than it already is. So this is the quarterback position. I don't love it. I'm not sure you love it. I think it's just there's a lot of odds and ends, and you know. Think about the 5 quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round this past year. Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. Nobody thought those guys were going to be first-round
Yeah.
picks. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, everybody knew. And it's and then Trey Lance, what everybody knew what Trey Lance was as a specimen. We wish we would have saw more tape, but he's still the third overall pick. So it's a way different class. There's a lot of guys. I like Kenny Pickett. I really do. Like Kenny Pickett, I was at the game when he beat Miami when they were ranked number 2, and he was a true freshman. And he's a gamer. He's the type of gamer that could make a NFL roster, be a backup for 6, 7, 8 years or something. But he doesn't have the upside really to be a fantasy quarterback in the NFL. And that's what Debbie's about. It's about predicting who is going to be actual NFL players on your fantasy teams. So let's get off the quarterback. Let's bring up the 2022 running back class. So real quick, I believe it doesn't have like the star power of a Najee Harris or a Travis Etienne, like right off the bat, like coming into like before, like think about before last year, like Etienne, Najee Harris, everybody thought they would have went into the draft class the year before. They came back for their senior season. It's not as star powered. I think it's a deeper class. This 22 class is going to be more deeper than what the 21 class was because it completely fell off after the top 3 RBs, adding Javonte Williams into that. So let's bring up my top 7. And it starts with Isaiah Spiller, who is a guy 6'1", 225. He has wheels. Like I've seen him compared to Le'Veon Bell because he's shifty and has a little bit of a hesitation in his game and then hits his gear. I think he has an extra gear than what Le'Veon had. I think he's going to run way better at like the combine than a 4.6 like Le'Veon did. He's a very impressive specimen. Jimbo Fisher is going to run the hell out of the ball this year and he's going to put his running backs in positions. This is by far the best running back he's had since Dalvin Cook at Florida State. I see him transitioning into the NFL very easily. And my number 2 is Breece Hall, which I think is a big gap. Like Kyren Williams is actually kind of a close 3 to 2 for me, but I don't think anybody is very close to Isaiah Spiller. What do you think about my top 7 right here?
Yeah, no, I love Isaiah Spiller. The thing about Isaiah Spiller that I love the most is his footwork. Man, when you watch his film, like he's got some of the best footwork in the game. Like it's quick. He hits the hole quick. He dances fast. He explodes to the line of scrimmage. So I think he lacks top end speed, but what he has at the line of scrimmage, that burst, that kind of sets him apart a little bit. I like Breece as well. So, I think Breece's ability to catch, he's pretty elusive, but he's not fast either. I think the one thing that I've always thought about with this running back class, there's no burners. Like there's no guys that I'm like, damn, he hits, he's gone. And I love speed. I'm a speed guy. Like I like my running backs to have speed. And there isn't really anything like that. Like I like Kyren Williams, but I think the thing that worries me about Kyren the most, because I have him as my 3rd right now. I think I have him and Eric Gray are very close to me. Like there's like you have them there. Like they're very close. I don't know what to do with both those dudes. The one thing that worries me about Kyren Williams is he's 5'9", 195. We just saw what the NFL thought of like Gainwell. We just saw what the NFL thinks of kind of these smaller backs. Like, will he get the draft capital? I think that's my biggest concern with Kyren Williams. Like, is he going to get the draft capital that matters? Like, if he falls to the 4th round, we're in trouble. Like, I think especially because you're spending probably a late 1st, early 2nd on him, depending on how your draft's going or how your startup draft's going. And that's a hard pill to swallow. I saw a lot of guys taking Gainwell in Debbie drafts last year at the 105, 106, 107. And then he goes, look at his draft capital, and now he's behind Miles Sanders. That's always the risk with Debbie. Like, who do you think these guys are? So, like, I really shifted my focus with running backs the last 3 years, and I changed it to, like, hey, these guys got to be 210, 215 at least. And then I'll look at them and I'll say, there's always outliers, but there's so many misses when you get under 215 pounds. I don't even want to touch it. Like I'm off on it, but because of this class is so weird because I don't think it's very solid either. I don't think there's a lot of guys like you have mentioned. They're there, but I do like that you brought in Zonovan Knight. Like Zonovan Knight is one of my guys I've been drafting in all my leagues. Like I've been getting him in like the 4th and 5th round of depleted drafts. So don't go draft him in the real 4th or 5th round, but like in depleted drafts and leagues that I'm already in, Zonovan's a guy that I think maybe could, I don't want to say he's going to be Javonte Williams. He's got a solid profile. He's got very good contact balance. He's fast. He breaks tackles. Like for everybody listening out there, take a look at Zonovan Knight's film. Like we could be talking about him vaulting into that second-round draft capital. But the one thing I would say is I think that this class has a lot of running back 2s for fantasy. I don't necessarily know if there's a lot of running back 1s in this class.
Now, Kyren he's got to get bigger. That's for sure. That's something he needs to work on if he wants to be that guy at the next level. He reminds me a lot of Aaron Jones, who I believe came in at around 205. Mm-hmm. If he can put the 10 more pounds, it's got to be at least 10 pounds. If he can get to 205, I could see him being a day 2 draft pick in the NFL on a team that's looking for the dynamic player. Because if you're looking for juice, say you do already have maybe the bowling ball of a running back and you're looking for someone with the juice, you're not going to get it with Brees or Spiller or even Gray. He has the most speed of this group and the most elusiveness. And this guy, I mean, he's really special in the open field. I can't wait to see him. And I think he's going to have a huge season because he's going to have to carry that offense. Ian Book, like you said, 4-year starter. He ran a lot of the offense ran through him and he's gone. He's gone. So they're going to have a new quarterback and they're going to have to go through Kyren Williams, and I'm really excited to see it. And he's going to have to work on his body to become a bigger player with more muscular frame to be able to take the beating that an NFL running back is going to. Yeah. So one of my favorite prospects and the best tape I watched last year was Kevin Harris from South Carolina. You want to talk, someone that's 195 pounds. This guy is rock solid. 225, 230, maybe even 235. Like, this guy's huge with wheels, good vision. I mean, he has a really nice burst. He reminds me so much of a little bit of a taller Nick Chubb without the 6th gear. He's not going to be as fast and not as much acceleration as Nick Chubb, but a lot of his game mirrors it. And he's a guy that came out of nowhere. He wasn't even supposed to be the guy in South Carolina. And he ended up leading the SEC in rushing for a terrible offense. I mean, nobody respected that pass game. That pass game was pathetic last year. He was the only thing they had, and Kevin Harris led the whole entire league in rushing, and it's the toughest conference. So he's a guy that jumped off for me, and I can't wait to see him this year. And he's a guy that is big enough to jump in the next level and not get manhandled. He's going to be manhandling people.
Yeah, Kevin Harris is one of those guys where, to me, I don't know if he's the best running back on his team. I think Marshawn Lloyd is really good. Had Marshawn Lloyd not gotten hurt, we wouldn't even be talking about Kevin Harris probably. But hey, Kevin Harris did what he needed to do. He stepped up. He led the SEC in yards. Like, there's nothing that we can say against him. I just think that there's going to be like a 60-40 split. Like, I really think Lloyd's going to kind of eat into his kind of usage a little bit this year, which will be fine. Which actually is. It's probably a good thing, right? So we don't have usage, right? If we're not playing Campus the Can, I could care less. I want these guys to get like 20 carries so that they're not used in the NFL. They're ready to go. I like his patience and vision. I think Harris's patience and vision, and like you said, his burst and kind of where he can kind of get into and his footwork, that's going to be good. But, I mean, the one thing to remember is South Carolina is going to be god-awful. Like, they're not going to be very good. They're kind of rebuilding again. So now you're looking at, like, can he elevate that team with the offensive line? The last time I looked, I think they lost 2 starters or 3 starters on the offensive line. They've got, coaching staff, everything kind of getting retooled. So I do think there's some question marks there. But if he can step up and be there, yeah, I could see him being there. I do think there's going to be a kind of a split, though, between him and Marshawn Lloyd. And I like Lloyd, so that's probably part of it, too.
Yeah, he might not equal the yards he had last year, but I think on tape, I think he's going to look fine. The offense was piss poor last year. It really was. The pass game could only get better than it was last year. Now the offensive line, that's always a question mark. It really is. It's college football when we're dealing with 19 and 20-year-old kids. You're not sure who's going to improve. You're not sure who's going to emerge. The coaching staff is kind of up in the air, and Lloyd is going to be in the mix. There's no doubt about that. But I think Kevin Harris solidified himself last year as a player you have to keep your eye on. So Mo Ibrahim, he's a guy I really like from Minnesota. He came back. I'm not going to get too much into him. He's just kind of a guy that I thought if he entered the draft last year, he was going to remind me a little bit of James Robinson, just kind of slow and steady, gets the job done. He's not overly impressive physically, but has nice vision, has nice wheels. I think he's going to have a pretty big year for Minnesota. probably be in the mix to be like a day 3 running back. I mean, we're getting into a little bit later. So let's check out my 8 through 14. It has right off the bat, a former 5-star guy that came back that kind of surprised some guys, and Zamir White. What do you see on tape on Zamir White, and is he one of your guys or is he not?
Oh, my guy Zeus. I like Zamir. I think that he's a very downhill runner. When I did the Georgia breakdown recently, like he has a specific skill set. He's going to run downhill between the tackles. He's going to score touchdowns, and that's kind of who he is. He's strong. Like I believe in high school, before he tore both his ACLs consecutive years, he was squatting like 800 pounds. So like this dude's lower body
Jesus.
and his ability to just break tackles, I think that sets him apart. The other thing too is like don't look at what Zamir was at the beginning of the year last year. He was coming off that ACL. As he got better and you watched him, he got more comfortable. Like you saw, like toward that second half of the season, like with JT being there, everything kind of settled down a little bit. He was a way better runner. He's elusive in space. He's not going to be that overburner again, like we've been mentioning. But I think he's going to be a solid back. I think that right now I have him valued as a second-round pick in Superflex leagues, like probably mid to late second. I like to value my guys based on that, so I know if I'm trading or how I'm doing it. So Zamir is someone in that mind. I like him though. He's going to be good between the tackles. Like I could see him having like a Darrell Henderson type role, like some guy who's coming in will be a solid, maybe starter in some areas, but backup that's going to score touchdowns and kind of be a filler.
Where do you have him at?
Zamir?
Yep.
I would say, you know what? I have it up right now. I got Zamir at 7 or 8. So basically where you're at. Like I have him in that category. He's a tier 3 guy for me. So he's someone in my tier 3 and there's a shit ton of tier 3 guys. I'll be honest with everybody out there. My rankings are basically tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3 is just tier 3, like all the way through. So like there's a lot of tier 3 guys in this class.
That's funny. You're right. There's going to be somebody that's going to emerge. It might be lower than my 14. But Jerome Ford is a guy that Austin hit me to from Campus of Canton, and I had to catch the tape because he wasn't really the starter last year, and he had a great game. He had a great bowl game, and that's where he kind of popped off for me, and I had to go back to it. A guy with some nice size, nice wheels, about 215 pounds. He is shifty. It seems like linebackers bounce off him. That's what you look for in running backs, right? Linebackers bounce off you is a good thing. He's a guy with a ton of upside, and he could easily move up these rankings.
Yeah, it's funny you said this because me and Austin, we don't agree on Jerome Ford. I like Jerome Ford. I like his ability to break tackles, like you said. Like he does have great contact balance, but Austin loves this kid. I don't have that saying like I message him all the time. Like I don't know what you see in Jerome Ford. Like I just did a breakdown on Cincinnati on my YouTube channel. I think he's fine. Like I think as a C2C asset, he's good because they're going to lean on him a little bit. Him and Ritter, they're going to do a lot of RPOs. You're going to see a lot of options. You're going to see a lot of rushing attacks from him, attempts. So I think as a C2C asset, I like him. As a Devy asset, I'm staying away. I don't want him on my Devy team just because he's someone that I can maybe draft in the supplemental draft if he hasn't got drafted yet or if he didn't get taken. I went back because when you messaged me, I wanted to see. I'm in way too many Devy leagues, but in my 10 Devy leagues that I'm in, he was not drafted at all in any of them. So he's not actually on a roster. So just for perspective out there, if you maybe want to have maybe have multiple picks in the last round and you want to take a shot on him, that's fine. I can see that, but I think he's fine, but he's not someone that I'm going to go after. There's a guy that you don't have on your list that I think that should be on there.
Let's hear it, baby.
So Keontae Ingram from USC, he's actually my running back 5. So I actually have him rated a little higher than you do. He's a transfer from Texas. Obviously, Bijan Robinson took his spot, and that was not coming back. He's 6'2", so he fits my frame. Like, man, he's massive. He's got great size, strength, speed, and athleticism is there. I love what I call it is positive gains. Like he doesn't have a lot of negative plays. So anytime he gets hit, he hits forward. Anytime he just keeps moving forward. He has a quick first step, and I honestly believe that he's the best receiving back in this class. So Ingram's going to have a place in the NFL because of his ability to catch the ball. The biggest problem with Ingram is that he lacked consistency at Texas. He got hurt, so we didn't see a lot of the times. He had hamstring issues. He had a lot of problems at Texas that we saw. But I think he's the best receiving back in this class. He's great. He's in a USC offense that I don't necessarily like from Graham Harrell, but because Carr transferred to Indiana, we're going to see Ingram get a little bit more run. So I think that people are sleeping on Ingram. He's the guy that I think that if he has a healthy year, we could be talking about as like the 5th guy in this class.
No, he has the size. And
yeah,
I think USC with Slovis, Drake London, some of those other wide receivers with him in the backfield, the offensive line looks decently solid. I think he could have a big season. I have him around 15, 18 range. After 14, it kind of all mirrors itself a little bit. James Cook's in there, Jarek Broussard, John Emery, if he's ever going to be the guy that we thought he was. Like, I doubt it, but he's on my list. Even Kennedy Brooks, even though I think Eric Gray is going to be the guy there. So there's other guys. These are just my top 14. It's still kind of early. I'm still digging a little bit more tape. Before the season starts, I'm going to have maybe my last ranking before where I go a little bit more in depth before the season actually starts. Mm-hmm. And then after week 1, it all changes. It all changes because we have more tape to watch. So James Cook is a guy I think is really underrated because we've never really seen him at Georgia. I mean, last year he was finally getting a little play, and I mean, he showed his burst like with that 80-yard reception against Alabama, and he's a guy that's a legit 4.4 guy, a little skinny. You'd like to see a little bit more muscle on him, but he's a guy that I think could fit in the NFL as a third down back with a role as a scat back. Rashad White, I mean, 10 yards per carry. That's hard to ignore last year. Ronnie Rivers, if I had to choose a guy, I mean, you had Ingram.
Yeah.
I think Ronnie Rivers is an amazing running back out of the backfield, catching the ball. He runs legit slot. I mean, it might even be his game at the next level because he is small. He is small, and I don't know if he's ever going to be a 20-touch guy in the NFL, but he's a guy that he runs slot receiver type routes when he's in the open field, and no linebacker in college football I think can stay with him right now, and he's going to get a little niche role in the NFL, I believe. I really like Rivers as a pass catcher. So anybody else we haven't talked about yet that could emerge out of nowhere, because it always happens. I mean, Javonte Williams probably wasn't on a ton of top 10 lists last year going into the season.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 guys I like. The reason I laughed about Ronnie Jones, I'm Fresno State season ticket holder, so I've been watching Ronnie play for the last 4 years. That dude just scores touchdowns. Like, he's just a touchdown magnet. Like, I love Ronnie. He's going to find a role because his dad played in the NFL too. He's got that pedigree. So, like, I thought he was going to come out this year, but he came back to school because the COVID rules allowed him. But that's a good call on Ronnie. I think Ronnie's going to find a role somewhere. Like, that dude's just a baller, and he just scores touchdowns. Like, when you watch him, he just scores touchdowns, and he's all over the field. 2 guys that I like that I think, I don't want to say, like, they're going to be amazing, but Noah Cain from Penn State. Like, I had this disagreement with Austin about this. I would rather have Noah Cain than Jerome Ford. Because I think Noah Cain's getting slept on a little bit. He had his injury at Penn State. We didn't really see him last year. I think he's going to be the starter this year. I'm not a big Kevon Lee guy. So I think Noah Cain's going to step up, and can he lead Penn State and do those type of things? We could see Noah Cain. He's got good size, 5'10", 208, 210, wherever he's listed at. And then Austin Jones from Stanford. I always got to give a shout out to Cali kids because I'm from Cali, as you know. So Austin Jones is one of the best high school prospects, running back prospects that came out of high school. And he's a very just solid kid. Like, he's got great size, 5'10", about 205. He's going to score touchdowns. He doesn't have that speed like we mentioned, but those are 2 kids to keep an eye on. Like, how well are they going to produce? Where are they going to be at the end of the season? But those are my 2 kind of, if we're going to go deep here, those are kind of my deeper guys.
I like it. I love showing your hometown a little love in Cali, your home state. So, and we know Stanford. What are they going to do? They're going to run the ball,
baby.
And if they find their guy, he's 25 touches, easy. So let's jump over to the wide receivers. So what do we think about this 2022 wide receiver class before I show my rankings?
Yeah, it's the same as these other guys, to be quite honest with you. Like, it's this class is not fun. There's a couple of good guys that kind of pop out, and then after that, I think depending on what you think, like, to me, my 1 through 4 are pretty interchangeable. Like, my top 4 guys, very interchangeable, and then you get to 5, and it's a cluster of guys. There's no really top guys, I don't think, in this class. There's a couple very, very solid wide receivers in this class. But again, when I'm looking at like, are they going to be like wide receiver ones? I don't see a ton of wide receiver ones in this class, to be honest with you. Like, I don't. I love the 2023 class much better, but I think the 2022 class, there's some question marks here.
Oh, I mean, if we're talking running backs, I can do a whole show on 2023 running backs.
Yeah.
But in the wide receivers, I like this class. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I'm just infatuated with it, but it has some guys that we're talking about sophomore wide receivers last year on tape. So the wide receiver is a position that's really hard to emerge and become a really good wide receiver. There's a lot that goes into it. When these guys are in high school, they just basically throw them the ball up and they can make plays against corners that aren't in the same even ballpark. So it takes a little bit. You don't see too many wide receivers just jump out their freshman season, and it's kind of hard in their sophomore season. So these guys can still all get better, and it starts with a guy who's not going to be on the field this year. And he is a guy that emerged as a freshman in George Pickens because he looked amazing. He looked like one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. His true freshman season with the routes, he was. I mean, even against LSU in that SEC championship game, they were getting mollywopped, and he still jumped off the tape for me against two NFL corners on the other side. So George Pickens, in this day of age where a torn ACL doesn't sound that bad, he is still my wide receiver one because he was my wide receiver one pre-injury. And he has time, the rehab, get ready for the NFL draft. So he is my wide receiver one. Garrett Wilson's two, prototypical outside receiver, good speed, good hands, can accelerate down the field. I mean, he looks exactly like T. Higgins to me. Treylon Burks is a guy I'm a little late on. Trey Burks, but a guy that's just oozing talent and is a great A.J. Brown comparison because he is so physical.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I love that you have Pickens as your number one because Pickens is my number one. We're going to be on the outlier on that. I hope you know that, right? Like, we're on the outliers on the George Pickens trade.
I mean, I'm fine with that because the tape doesn't change for me. He's not going to be able to play this season. He's going, as long as everything goes well, he's going to be healthy for the combine. He's going to be healthy for draft day. That's all that matters. He has enough really good tape to be the first overall wide receiver taken. And even if he's not the first overall wide receiver taken, he's still going to be in the mix for a first-round pick. I believe your number 4 guy, or the guy that's in the top 4 mix that I have number 6, would be David Bell. Yeah. Is that one of your top 4 guys? And he's a guy I like. He's my 6th overall wide receiver. I don't think he's in the same tier as those top 3 guys. I don't see the afterburners. I see a really solid guy. I don't know if he's a difference maker on the outside.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's my biggest concern with him. Like my 2 checks against him was doesn't possess top end speed, and I think he struggles with his release. Like when I watch him play, when he gets pressed a little bit, he can struggle against. I wouldn't say bigger corners, but he just doesn't get off the line as fast as I'd like to see. I worry about that because at the NFL level, you got to get off press coverage. You got to get off the line, and so that's one of the things that I look at. Like, hey, can he do that? That's why I think I have Pickens so high because I think he can get off the line. He's elite at that. So when you're watching what Bell can do, so. I don't hate it. Bell I put him at 4 for me, so interchangeable, but he is my 4th guy. So around that area that you have him. I like his strength, I like his size, but he's a wide receiver 2 all the way. Like I don't ever see David Bell being that wide receiver 1 type.
Now, I've seen a ton of Drake London hate on Twitter this past week. It might have been from you. I don't even know. What do you think about Drake London? What do you think about the big 6'5", 210-pound wide receiver from USC?
Drake is fine. I don't have him in the top 5 for me. I understand why you would. I think the biggest concern, and it's a fair concern, is that they schemed a lot for him last year. So he got a lot of volume and a lot of targets because they schemed for him because he's a very big wide receiver. Him and Slovis have a very good connection. So I really want to see how he does this year without Amon-Ra being there. I know that USC's got a really crowded receiver room. They recently got Jake Smith from Texas. Brew McCoy is there. They have a lot of guys, but they don't have the dude. Like London needs to be the guy this year. So can he step up? So for me, he's a wait and see prospect. I like his size. I think he does have some yak ability. And I think he's fine. Does he have a good enough release to get off the line? I don't know. I think I question that a little bit. But I think what a lot of people, and from a lot of people, the circles that I kind of run in, they talk about how he got schemed too much. And they're worried about that target share just being too big to where he's basically just getting all the targets. And that's kind of inflated his production a little bit.
I really like that he was working out of the slot, but also on the other side, like he's not working on the outside. So
yeah,
St. Brown's gone. Oh, the other guy's gone. I can't. What was the other wide receiver out there? He didn't get
Tyler Bonds.
Tyler Bonds actually really liked him, and
I did too.
So I'm thinking they need to put him on the outside a little bit and test those waters a little bit. Maybe he can improve his release. He's not going to be a 4-4 guy, but I think he's got plenty of wheels. And that catch radius is amazing. He goes up and gets the ball. He does. And with that size, he's a guy. I know this guy's going to be in the NFL. He's going to get drafted unless there's a bad injury or something crazy. Like with that size, that talent, he's going to be a guy. Will he be a first-round pick? I'm not so sure of, but I believe he's going to be drafted in the first 3-4 rounds very easily. Now, the next guy has a ton of juice, and John Mechie. What do we think about him finally emerging as maybe the only guy left there in that Alabama wide receiver core that's not a true freshman?
Yeah, I'm out on Mechie. I'm out. I think he's okay. I know some people really like him. I don't mind the ranking though. 5's, I saw some people have him at like 3 or 2 recently, and I was out on that. I like his size, like 6'1", 195. Like he's fine. He doesn't really like pop for me. Like to be honest, even guys like Jamison Williams, who did just transfer there from Ohio State, like some other guys I think are going to be there. I think Mechie's going to put up numbers though. So don't get me wrong. Like Mechie is going to put up numbers there next year. He's going to have the draft profile. Like he's going to get the draft stock probably. I don't believe in him as a receiver. I think he's okay. Like nothing really pops. I think IG Hall, the true freshman, is going to get a lot more run than people think there because he is that good. I would argue that he's one of the best prospects we've seen at the position for a long time. So I do think that we're going to see different targets, different target share there based on who he has. But I'm not. Mechie is just someone I don't know. What do you see when you watch this film? Because when I see it, I think he's fine, but nothing really for me pops. Like there's nothing that I like. Yeah, damn, that could be a wide receiver one.
Now you have to be a little bit careful when talking about these really high prospects coming in and just emerging and taking talent or taking production and targets away from an established wide receiver. When I watch Mechie on tape, what does pop is when it's a deep pass and he's open, he's really open. It's not just 3-5 yards. Like I've seen there's tape where he's like 10 yards down the field wide open. And I know it's Alabama where Devontae was on the other side and Najee Harris is back there and Jalen Waddle. And I didn't know who he was until the start of the 2020 season. And I was like, whoa, who's this guy? Because he was making big plays down the field. I was not a Mac Jones fan, but I think he throws a beautiful deep ball. And I was like, who is this guy that's just constantly 5-8 yards behind a corner? And it was John Mechie. And now it's his core. They're going to need him. I'm a big Bryce Young fan. I think he has all the talent in the world. And I think he's going to become close friends with Mechie right off the bat. I like the true freshman. I like all these wide receivers that are going to be there. I really like the tight end, but he's going to be the pass offense. He's going to put up big numbers. And with that speed and acceleration, I think he's the guy that, is going to be the NFL guy. He's the next NFL guy at Alabama. He just is. Nobody can really tell me different. But the guy at number 7 matches his profile a little bit. And I think he's the most underrated guy in America right now, in Jahan Dotson. I had a 2nd-round grade on him last season. He had an incredible game against Ohio State. And then that's what caught my eye, and that was early in the season. And then watching him the rest of the season, it was beautiful watching his tape. He's one of my favorite tape watches. Where do you have Jahan Dotson at?
No, you have him about right, 7. I think 7, 8-ish in that category right now for me. I think I have him at, if I had to look, I'm at 9 for him. So I'm a little lower, but not terrible. Like I think he's in that tier. I think he's clearly kind of in that tier 2, 3-ish range, kind of in the middle. I like him though, what you're saying. Like I think that when I looked at him, now I'm not an analytics guy at all. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not that guy. But I think when you look at it's Canvas to Canton has a really good weighted dominator rating, and they go over their wide receiver prospects. He didn't really break out until his third year. So when you watched it, he hit a 40% weighted dominator rating. So his last year he did. I wish he would have came out last year. So since he came back, now we're going to look, okay, can he produce? Can he jump out of there? I think he might be able to. I think Parker Washington's going to eat into that a little bit because I do like Parker Washington as well. But I think my biggest concern with Dotson is that Penn State offense is not going to be great. I mean, I don't like their offensive coordinator. I do think that their quarterback, he struggles a little bit with just his ability to kind of be accurate. So, like, Dotson's going to really have to be really good in yak ability, maybe trying to get, like, averaging 18, 19 yards a catch. That would be really good for him and, like, say, hey, big play threat. But I think you have him right. I think that would, but to your credit and to everybody out there that's listening, the NFL is starting to like guys like Jahan Dotson. Like, I used to think, like, hey, big wide receivers is what they're looking for. And then now look at what they've been drafting. So, like, I think we got to shift our mindset of, like, okay, well, NFL is going towards guys like Dotson too. So we need to kind of adjust our rankings as well.
I mean, he's a big play waiting to happen. He could very easily average 18 yards per catch next season. He can go up and get the ball. A little bit of kick return. I mean, get the ball in his hands. He can make a play. I'm not sure he can improve what I thought his draft stock was last year. It was a really deep wide receiver class last year. This one is going to be pretty deep. There's a lot of wide receivers. Think of the wide receivers that have come out the last 3 seasons. It's flooded NFL teams with wide receivers, and it's not stopping. College is producing more wide receivers talent than ever because it's a position that people just flock to. And when you have talent, why not go up and get the ball? Because I know I could. If I could jump and run over people, I absolutely would be a wide receiver all day. So let's pop to the next grouping, 8 through 14. Starts with Chris Olave. Now, am I too low on him? Because I know most of America would probably think I am.
No, you're fine. I'm not an Olave truther. I actually think Jackson Smith-Njigba is better than him already. So I'm going out on a limb on that one anyway. I think Olave should have came out this year. I think he'll get draft capital, but I'm not buying Olave at his price right now.
Yeah, I mean, him and Dotson are very similar to me. I mean, top end speed is really there. I don't think he's after the catch guy that Dotson is. He's a little skinny, not much. I mean, on him, he's about 180 pounds, I think. And you can get that size in the NFL. I'm a little bit worried of him getting knocked around a little bit more than others. Justin Ross, a huge question mark. A guy I called the next Julio Jones after his. You want to talk about breakout age? I mean, Justin Ross, his freshman season, I thought was one of the most dominant freshman seasons I've ever seen from a wide receiver. It really was. I thought he was on the path of becoming a top 5 pick. His sophomore season, I thought he regressed. Then we didn't get the junior season. I'm very glad he came back. He should be healthy. And I'm here for it, but I'm not going to put too much stock into Justin Ross right now until I see him healthy.
Yeah, I put him on my, do not draft list for Fantasy Pros until we know what's going on with his injury. Like, that guy legitimately needed to get cleared this month just to be able to play. I do think also there were some question marks his sophomore year. Now, he did break out his freshman year, but his sophomore year, you saw him struggle a little bit, and there was some, route running against press. Like, there were some things that popped off his film that you're like, hey, there's some things he needs to work on. Then he gets his injury. He was injured. Then they found out he had a congenital neck. He had to have fusion surgery. So not only did you have fusion surgery, you might not be able to play again, and you had question marks. Like, for me, and he's still getting drafted really high. I think his ADP right now, the last time I looked, was the 4th round of Devy drafts or 3rd. He's getting drafted based on name, not what talent and based on, like, kind of what you should be drafting for him. Like, he was a value last year when people didn't think he was going to play. I saw him go like the 12th, 13th round, some drafts. Like, okay, you taking a flyer on a guy like that. Now he's getting up to the 3rd and 4th round. To me, I'm staying away. Anytime you hear neck, back issues, like especially wide receivers, especially with that position, I'm staying away. I'm not wasting draft capital.
Understandable. He's got to be in the mix for me. I'm not going to put him on a complete do not draft list, but his sophomore season scared me off a little bit, and I was very bullish on him. I called him the next Julio Jones. I really did, and I said Clemson is remarkable because they have the number one quarterback, number one running back, and number one wide receiver in the country, because I really thought that. And he regressed a little bit. Then we didn't get to see it last year as a junior. So I'm here for it. I think he needs to be thought about like that. But I'm not going to go tell you go draft him in the 4th round of a Debbie startup. There's not a chance in hell I'm going to tell you to do that. No way. Maybe a little bit more down the line in the 8th, 9th round, I feel a little bit more comfortable. But he's a guy that if he can come back healthy, I mean, you have cutting off a little bit.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, no worries. Anybody 10 through 14 pops out for you?
My boy Zay Flowers. I'm surprised you had him a little lower than I do. Like, I think Zay is gonna pop off this year, man. Like, I love him. He's kind of the prototypical guy, 5'11", 178, but vertical threat, yak monster, elusive athlete, creates separation, excellent hands. This dude, he's probably one of my favorite guys. I don't want to say he's one of my guys yet, but he's one of those dudes I'll be watching a lot. And that's why I think Bill Jerkovich may get drafted, just because of what Zay's going to do out there in Boston College. I think he needs to improve his strength up the line a little bit, but I think his ceiling, Zay Flowers' ceiling, is what I think excites me the most.
He could be this year's Elijah Moore. He really could be. He could have a fantastic season, be a day 2 pick. It could easily happen. He's definitely on my radar. Like I said, there's some guys. There's some depth here. And I like Joe Nagata and Frank Ladinson. I mean, these are 5-star guys with all the talent in the world. He's a guy that is you talk about a couple of these guys struggle off release. This is a guy that good luck trying to check him at the line of scrimmage. Big question of health with him. Now, Ladson is a guy that wasn't healthy, or Ladson's a guy that everybody's waiting to emerge as like alpha guy. 6'3", 205, 4'4" guy, humongous recruit. Looks great one play, the next play looks terrible. He's a guy, if he can get it together, he could, fly up these rankings.
Yeah, I'll just mention Nagata. Like, if he could stay, he was one of the highest producers at Folsom, California. So I got to give a shout out again. Sorry for all my Cali love today. But this dude was amazing. I watched him play in high school. Like, this kid, he scored, I think, 50 touchdowns in high school. Like, that's how productive Joe Nagata was. And he was great in the spring game. He's been great everywhere he's been, except for he can't stay on the damn field. Like, he just keeps getting hurt. And I don't want to call him injury prone, because the injuries are just kind of, they're those injuries that just happen on the field, and it's just one of those things, you just can't stay there. I think we could be talking about him. And then another Clemson kid is, he's not in this class, but Bo Collins, freshman kid. He is legit. Like, Bo Collins is a very good prospect. I think we could see him actually take some targets away from Ladson and Nagata.
Man, I really wish I had California Love queued up right now. Like Tupac, Dr. Dre, that'd be the perfect timing ever.
We get disrespected out here a little bit, all right? We got good football, okay? I know we're not Texas and Florida, but we got some good football here.
Hey, Ohio, baby. Come on, Canton. 3-3-0. Hall of Fame City. We do a little football around here for sure. So those were the wide receivers. Anybody that I did not rank in my top 14 that I should have?
No, I think your list is good. There's this, maybe, I know Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss is getting some love right now from some people. He's a guy to keep an eye on, especially if I believe Matt Corral. Mingo might actually be stepping up there. Aeneas Smith from Texas A&M. I don't know what the hell he is, if he's a running back or a wide receiver, but he's a Swiss Army knife. Like, that guy can do it all. Those are two guys that I like. But no, I like that. I like that you put Tolbert in there. I think Tolbert's going to get some run this year as well.
Yeah, Tolbert's a guy I got in campus at Canton very late.
Smart,
and I loved it. He's going to have a big year, and he has some really nice size. 6'3", 195, can add a little muscle, quick. A guy that was after the catch, amazing. It's at the lower levels. You would like to see it in the SEC, but obviously it's not going to happen. Anybody tight end? I don't have my list right now. Anybody tight end that pops off?
Yeah, obviously we're going to talk about Jalen Weidemeyer from Texas A&M. I think he's the clear tight end one. My big guy is Cade Otton. I don't think Cade Otton's getting a lot of love out there. He's 6'5", 240. He's going to be the senior, but he's, his stats in college: 63 receptions, yards and 8 touchdowns. He's a great blocker, hands, consistent. He finds open zones. Like Cade Otton is a guy for everybody out to keep an eye on. And then obviously like Cole Turner, some of those guys, and Austin Stogner from Oklahoma. He's going to have a great year with Rattler, and we could see him kind of vaulting himself up. I mean, Stogner's, I think, 6'6", 262 or something like that, massive frame. So those are guys I'm trying to keep an eye on right now.
I like it. I'm a shout out a little Miami player. Will Mallory is a guy that played behind Brevin Jordan the last 3 seasons that is just waiting, I think, to finally get that role as the guy at the tight end. And he has averaged like 20 yards per catch last year. He's a guy 6'5", good size, good speed. They're going to use him a lot this year, and he's a prototypical tight end. He can block. He can get out in the field. He can beat a linebacker. He can manhandle a safety. So he's a guy. I want to shout out Miami guy. So we're going in about an hour. I want to get a couple Devy sleepers that maybe we didn't talk about right now that might not be in this 22 class, or they could be in the 22 class, and then we'll go ahead and end the show.
Yeah, I can give you a couple. Xavier Henderson, wide receiver from Florida. I think Florida is going into this kind of, I don't want to say rebuild, but they lost a lot of talent. We saw Tony, Pitts, all those guys. Xavier Henderson, someone he's played every game last year and almost every game, but he didn't get a lot of targets because he had Tony, Pitts being there and all that, and Copeland was there. But he's 6'3", 191. He's from Miami, so that you like that. 9 receptions last year, 148 yards, 1 touchdown. But he's a guy that maybe can step up, and they're going to kind of come into this new offense with Emory Jones there. A lot more kind of wheel routes, a lot more different kind of throwing the ball downfield. So I think Xavier Henderson from Florida, I think his ADP right now on Campus the Cannon is around 18 to 20. So he's a deeper sleeper guy of the sophomore class. But I like his profile. I love my wide receivers at 6'3", 190 and his athleticism. So that's a guy you keep an eye out for.
Yeah, CJ's brother. I was heartbroken when he picked Florida over Miami, and I was heartbroken when CJ decommitted from Miami to go to Florida. Dan Mullen, amazing coach. Whenever he went to Florida, I said, "Oh shit, we have our work cut out for him because Florida is going to get it done." Not a huge Emory Jones fan though. It's gonna. I'd be worried about any wide receiver getting a ton of production with Emory Jones as the full-time quarterback. Unless he improved. We've seen him as just basically like a wildcat at the quarterback position. And, I mean, I'm not even sure how many passes he threw last season, but big-time recruit.
I will say Anthony Richardson might play a little bit faster than what we think, and he's a stud. So at the quarterback position. So we could see maybe that.
Absolutely. So we're about done here. So, Kevin, thank you so much for jumping on today, man. Talking Devy. I want you to let everybody know out there, where to find you, when to find you, and what shows you're doing.
Yeah, you can find me at Twitter at DuBois_22. It's an homage to my Cowboys, and I won't change it because it's a thing to my grandpa. So I got to go out there. You can find me there. You can find me writing at Fantasy Pros. And then I have 2 podcasts. I do one with my good friend Jacob. It's called Super Fantasy Pros. And we cover Dynasty Redraft. That's at 7:30 Eastern. You can live stream it on the Triple Play Network. And then I have the Devy Royale, which is my good friend Jeff Bell and Christian Williams. And it's all Devy and gambling. Right now we're struggling with topics and gambling topics. So we've been doing WNBA games, NBA games, anything we can. We did a French league game because without college football, we're struggling right now. But as soon as college football goes, we'll be giving you guys bets, prop bets, all of that. So just follow us and you can watch us on that.
Shit, I didn't realize that you got into the gambling aspect of it too. So real quick, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Week 1, I have 2 games. First one, Georgia versus Clemson. Who are you leaning?
That's the game of the week. I'm gonna lean without seeing the lines. I'll take Georgia. I'm gonna take Georgia. I think they beat Clemson.
I think they do also. I love this Georgia team. Eric Gilbert, Washington, they're going to be running 2 tight end sets. I like Jackson. I still like the wide receivers they have. They have the best backfield of running backs out there. I love Milton. I think he's going to be a 23 star. Obviously, Zamir White, James Cook. I love Georgia. I like JT Daniels. So I've been hyping all these guys. So I'm going to pick Georgia. And what do we think about Miami getting like 20 against Alabama?
It's funny you say that because we talked about this on the on the podcast. I said this is about the time when people start believing that Alabama can, lose or whatever. I like Miami, so don't get me wrong. I don't know. I don't think King's going to be ready by then. Maybe he is. I don't. Is King coming back before then?
He supposedly they claim he's going to be 100%. It's hard for me to believe it. It was in the bowl game the day that he released that he was going to come back for his 6th season because I mean, why not? Why not? It was kind of like the Ronnie Rivers story. Why not come back if you can't? I mean, be a 6th round pick. This is a guy that is going to be a future either offensive coordinator, if not head coach, at a very high level in college or in the NFL. He actually called plays in the spring game. In the 4th quarter for us. So D'Eriq King is a very smart guy. Now, is he going to be 100% healthy in September after tearing his ACL in late December? I'm praying. I love the 2 guys we have behind him, and Garcia and Van Dyke.
Garcia.
I mean, that quarterback room is ready to go to finally give me a goddamn legitimate quarterback. Give me plus 20 with a Bryce Young. The offensive line's a little new. We're talking about true freshman wide receivers starting. The defense, I can't really, I like the linebacker core, but I mean, it's Alabama. So it's going to be 20 points because Miami has been relevant in damn near 20 years. So it's going to be a crazy game. I just can't wait to see it. I'm hoping I'm just hoping it stays within about 10 to 14 and we can try to win the ACC.
Yeah. If King's healthy, I might be able to put some money down on 20. But if he's not and it's that first game, I do think Bryce is going to take some time too. Like, I like Bryce, but they'll probably focus on the run and just they'll protect Bryce a little bit. I could see a backdoor cover in that game. I'll give you a little shout out. Maybe backdoor cover. That's maybe they'll get a backdoor cover.
When's the last time you seen Miami? Oh yeah, Javonte and Michael Carter ran for like 550. Jesus, I'm losing my hair fast enough, but goddamn it, I was pulling my hair out. Jesus Christ. It was pretty sad. So this is another episode of Roster Rescue. I'm Zack Sander, joined by Kevin today. And if you get in the Devy, this was the episode for you. So I want to thank everybody out there. I want to thank Kevin, and we're going to go ahead and head out.
See you guys.